How are you doing today, people? Today we're going to do a little project. We're going to 3D print this little fella here. This little guy is used for a coin counting machine, so you slot this guy in, the coins come into it. It's from one of my friends. He wanted me to print this because he's missing a few. I will 3D model this guy right here, and then I'm going to bring it onto my 3D printing software and I'm going to print it off on my 3D printer. I have an XYZ DaVinci 1.0 3D printer, so first you're going to see a nice time lapse of me sketching out this guy here. Second, you'll see the 3D model time lapse, and then you'll see the 3D print time lapse itself. Once that's all done, I will bring the models up and I will show you how they get on.
This is a Chucki beat production.
So now that I have my 3D model ready to go, I can bring it onto my software. So this is the software that comes with my printer. It's a native software. It's quite simple. So all I got to do is I got to export this file. I'm going to leave the settings around where they are. I don't really need this guy too much. I'm going to increase the layer height so it prints a little bit quicker. There's nothing else I need to change here, so I can go ahead and export this. Now that that's exported, I can go ahead and send it to my 3D printer. So bring on the next time lapse. So that is finished, and this is what it looks like. So you can see here, you can see all the lines all up in there. That's how 3D printing works. So as you see in the time lapse, it's all in layers. I'm quite happy with this. This is almost bang on size wise. So what I got to do now is I got to print off 2 more of these guys, and that'll be job done. Once I've printed these off, I'm going to do a bit of finishing on them. So I'm going to start off by sanding them, and then I'm going to do an experimental technique where I use acetone to smoothen the layers out. So that's going to give a nice finish, and that'll be job done. And then I'll deliver the product. So now that all 3 parts are printed out, so you can see that I ran out of green filament, so I had to print the last one on white. But that's no big deal. So I'm going to start off with some 180 grit sandpaper, and then I'm going to work my way up to some 320 grit sandpaper. That should smoothen the part out quite nicely. So enjoy the time lapse. So you can see the part is starting to smoothen out quite nicely. All those ridges and imperfections are starting to be removed. I'll keep at the 180 grit sandpaper for a while, and then I'll move on to the 320 and smoothen them out. So to give you a quick comparison of what these two guys look like compared to one another, this is before sanding and this is after sanding. You can see there's a nice smooth finish to it. that I've finished off with the coarse sandpaper, I'm going to move on to the fine sandpaper, which is going to give it a nice smooth finish. Okay, so you can see the finished product here compared to what it was like. It's an awful lot smoother. I'm gonna give these a little bit of a rinse so I can remove a lot of this dust essentially that's left over from the plastic being sanded, and then I'm finally going to move on to the last process, which is known as acetone vapour smoothening. So that's going to smoothen right out all the layers and it'll give it a sort of glossy finish. I'll give you a quick preview of what these guys look like now once I've washed off this, and then I'll move on to the vapour smoothing and that'll be finished. Alright, so with acetone vapour smoothing, you gotta put your print into a jar, container, whatever it can be. It could be a pot, whatever. Jars are handy because you can see through it, and you got to put a little bit of acetone in there. Now I have my print elevated with a little bit of nut, so I put a bit of sticky tape in the bottom and I just put the nut on top of it so it's raised, so it's not sitting inside the acetone. What I'll do is I'll put this onto a hot plate. The acetone will vaporize with the heat and then it'll smooth out the part. So without delaying, I'm going to put this onto a hot plate and you'll see a nice time lapse of the actual smoothing process.
This is a Chucki beat production.
And that is finished. So that's the 3 parts done. The last process there, you can see the whole surface has been smoothed out quite nicely. There's a very glossy finish on it. It took quite a while to get these 3 guys done. It was about 3.5 hours each print, and then probably about half an hour afterwards to finish off these parts. So I'm going to bring these parts over to my friend's house. We're going to check them out and see if they work, and that's it. So here we have the coin counting machine. As I was saying, it's missing 3 slots here, so we're going to stick these guys in and see how they fit. Perfect. Alright, so all we got to do now is load it up with money and see how she counts. So that is the whole 3D printing process from start to finish. So from taking an initial idea, sketching it up, bringing it into a 3D model, printing it off, post-production on it. Now the post-production part, the sanding, is exactly necessary if you have a very high quality printer, but if you have one that gives lots of ridges and lines, you're better off sanding. And then the acetone is a more advanced technique, something that I have to perfect myself. If you like the video, please give it a like. If you have any questions at all, just stick them down in the comments and I'll get back to you. And thanks for watching.